Hello, this is Free Coffee. My name is Devon, Redmond.
I'm Alexyn, Wundrland.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome. So this week we wanted to talk about opioids. I've heard a lot in the news, it's been circulating a lot lately, about the opioid epidemic that the United States is currently facing. And like how we do on most of our shows, or all other shows really, we take a broad topic and try to focus it in a little bit more on the Black community and people of color and our issues. So I had the question regarding opioids. Why is it now we're in a place where we want to rehab folks who are abusing drugs, but this wasn't the feeling that was the case back in the 80s when crack was a big thing, the 70s and stuff like that. There was a war on drugs and jail time. We had 3 strikes you're out, and during the Clinton administration, so many things year after year. When we're policing Black bodies and Black folks who are using drugs, rehab isn't really an option. But now in 2017, it is. So I guess the question that I had was, why now? Why are we rehabbing?
You said something in there that I want to make sure that people understand,
Right.
And that is about the 3 strikes law. The 3 strikes. I don't know the exact name of it. Is it called the 3 strikes law?
I don't know.
But anyway, you can look it up. You can Google it. It's a law that said that if you get convicted of 3 felonies, no matter what, you have to serve a mandatory life sentence. I believe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Drug possession over a certain amount is a felony. So if you get 3 cases of a drug conviction, you can be sent to prison for life.
Yeah.
For marijuana, all 3 times, very conceivably. It's happened before. And
even bringing up marijuana, it's kind of one of those things how marijuana is still heavily policed. But it's kind of policed how we want to police it. That's funny because it's like marijuana is in a place where federally it's still not acceptable. So it's kind of like we can crack down on you if we feel like cracking down on you versus like this is where we stand as a country. We are for it. We're against it. Da 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 da. It's like drugs that are associated by stereotype with people of color are heavily policed, and there is no rehab. There's no weed rehab. You know what I mean? Like you can't go to weed rehab. It's just like the consequences. If in the event that the law wants to throw a consequence at you, it's kind of whatever we feel like. How far do we want to go with this? But back to the topic of opioids. It's a problem, apparently, and I guess I don't realize it as being a big problem because I don't know anyone who is addicted to opioids. I think the only people, if somebody ever asked me the people who I know who've been affected by opioids, I would be like Michael Jackson and Prince. And that's where I stand.
That's pretty much.
That's where I stand. I don't know anybody else who's using opioids like that.
I don't know anybody, but opioids is a pretty general.
Or opiates. Whatever.
Yeah, it's a very general term. It encompasses a lot of drugs. For example, morphine, heroin are both in that same class. Oxycodone, Vicodin, the whole list of addictive painkillers pretty much falls in the opioid category. But the reason why overdoses, and particularly deaths from using opioids, is becoming such a problem is because of the strength of new synthetic opioid painkillers, mainly fentanyl. How strong is it, you ask? Fentanyl is 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine and 30 to 50 times more potent than heroin. So with only 2 milligrams becoming a lethal dose. 2 milligrams. It's pure white, odorless, and flavorless. And it has the potency that's strong enough that the police and first responders helping overdose victims from it have themselves overdosed by simply touching it. So
you're reading this from?
I'm reading this from Wikipedia, a place called Wikipedia on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Also known as Wiki. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
They do have a citation, and that citation is from somewhere else. I'm not actually on the Wikipedia page, so that didn't work at all.
Okay, but no, I mean, back to just your thoughts on how we're policing or how we're handling the opioid crisis. I
From
think
the Wall Street Journal.
That's really what I want to understand.
Yeah, no, to understand how that happened. So I think that the question being why we're treating this new drug crisis with rehabilitation, that's often the approach that people are advocating that we take towards people who are having that have this drug addiction and are overdosing, as opposed to in the 80's when we had the war on drugs and the crackdown. It was very much a policing problem, and it was criminalized. It was treated like like criminals. Drug users were treated like criminals, and I think that is for a lot of reasons. I think it's not just for one. I don't think there's a right answer. I think one is that one could argue that because we had the failed war on drugs, that as a society we're in a different place in general, and we are less inclined, since we know that throwing people in jail for using drugs isn't the best way to help them or society, that we're less inclined to take that route again, just generally speaking. The other is that opioids is a white people problem.
That's where I stand on it. I think opioids are a white people problem in general, and white people don't want to throw. It's easier for a lot of white people to look at other white people like, that's my cousin. I understand that crisis, versus like when you drive into the city to go to the baseball game and then it's a crackhead asking you for some change. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, I don't know that guy. His feet are really ashy. I'm just going to get out of this situation. Whereas when it's a white person, and especially if you're not interacting with if you don't interact with black people a lot or people of color very often, if somebody is on drugs, I feel like there's just a higher level of tolerance that you have when, you're familiar with your Uncle Larry, who is a heroin addict, white guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or what was the guy, the actor? There was like a couple of big actors. Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah.
Heroin. Yeah. And then the guy from Glee. The guy from Glee just like
the
up
young
and died.
kid.
Yeah, off of heroin.
Kid.
So it's kind of like, oh no, the celebs are doing heroin. But then it's like, back in the day, I feel like folks weren't getting that same kind of leeway. They'd be like, oh, they're doing heroin, Or check it out though. Let's go even one step further. Cause I think I'm picking up on like the duality of how we play what drugs are a problem and what drugs aren't. Like when I'm actually having like a breakthrough right now. When Kellyanne Conway, do you remember that interview when Kellyanne Conway was pretty much like, use your own willpower. If you're on drugs, you need to figure it out.
I think she was, there was like a fundamental difference or perspective on what drug addiction is and how to fix it. Like, I think a lot of people in the country feel like that you can conquer drug addiction with sheer willpower. If you can't, you're just not strong enough. You're not being strong enough. You're being weak, or you're just not putting enough effort into it. You don't really want to get off of your, be free of your addiction. I think a lot of people think that. I think that, of course, their willpower does have a bit to do with it, just like any human thing. But I think that the much larger part is the fact that these drugs are highly addictive. And once you go down that path, it can be hard to break the grip. And there's genetic factors at play, and a lot of other things. You know, I don't think it's just like one thing.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about the doctors being at fault.
Mm-hmm.
Is like doctors as drug dealers, and that being a really hard concept for America to grapple with.
Mm-hmm.
That your doctor is just a certified drug dealer versus, you know, a street dealer who maybe didn't go to school for this. But it's kind of like, where's this information coming from? It's still a money motivation. Let me put it that way. It's all of this is, if I get more people to take these prescriptions, then I make more money. The same thing as a drug dealer, but we can't look at doctors as drug dealers. And fundamentally, I do think that's a problem, to look at doctors as drug dealers. But then at the same time, I think it's weird that we can't place the blame on just where it is. Like, you guys are dealing drugs. You're working for Big Pharma. You're doing this stuff. Just outright call it what it is. But we're still like victim blaming, I feel like.
Oh, definitely.
Even to go to rehab is like, the person who gave you this drug knew that this was a highly addictive drug. And it pisses me off that I feel like doctors are still like, we don't know the effects of opiates on people. Like, bruh, this has been going on since like the fucking 70s. Like, you absolutely know the effects of the opiates on human bodies, just period, you know, and I don't want to hear anything else about it.
Half of all opioid overdoses are from prescription painkillers. So, yeah, doctors are literally causing half of the overdoses.
And we're not throwing doctors in jail, though. We're completely turning a blind eye to this issue overall.
Because my question is, and I don't know the answer, I'm not 100%, I think I do, but my question is, why are they still prescribing opioids at all? There has to be other painkillers that can get the job done, but maybe not. I'm not a doctor. I don't know the answer to that question. But certainly we should be, I hope we're researching that. I hope we're trying to get, it doesn't even seem like we're attempting to be free of the opioids, the addictive painkillers. It seems like we're very much trudging down that path, full steam ahead, and we're just dealing with the aftermath as it comes up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of tackling the problem. So
find a drug that is non-addictive that can kill pain.
It's just like, oh, we do this, we sell this drug and it causes addiction. That's gonna be what it is. And now you folks just figure it out. Quarrel amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think it feels like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know of anybody. Well, of course, I'm not in the back end of the pharmaceutical world where they're testing in the lab to see what does what. But it seems like. But then something like marijuana, especially when you know the industries that are attacking marijuana and trying to take it down, like. Mm-hmm. We know what is it? Why? What is the game? Is it that there's more money? I guess if you're in a lab and you make these drugs and you can sell it for whatever you want to sell it for. Talk to me, holler at me. I'm trying to. What is it that you get out of? I'm putting it at money, sort of, kind of. But then I feel like there's a lot of money in weed too. So how come all these folks were like, no. We don't want weed to make it. Why don't you just make weed? People will smoke it, you know. Hence the issue in Nevada where they're in a state of national emergency. Not a national emergency, but they've issued a state of emergency for the state of Nevada because they ran out of weed. People want weed and aren't overdosing off of it.
Yeah.
I also say I don't know that weed is, of course, I don't think
I don't know
heroin.
I don't know
clearly
that it's necessarily
not heroin.
I think it helps with some aspects of pain that people feel, but I don't know that it's like an all-encompassing pain solution.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's always been my...
But what about the people with cancer? You know what I'm saying? When they say, like, I have cancer, I'm in pain, I can't eat, I can't do anything, everything hurts.
Yeah.
And then they just
Smoke?
They're not necessarily smoke. Ingested oil. I mean, there's so many other things that you can do in order to experience it. Capsules, just whatever. But nobody's putting anything into that. It seems like
because there's so many laws against the use of weed, they're not even allowed to, because it's a Schedule whatever substance. I can't remember.
Schedule A.
I think it's like Schedule 1. Yeah.
Schedule 1.
Schedule A. Because it's a Schedule 1 substance, they can't even run tests to see how marijuana affects.
Why is it Schedule 1?
I actually saw this, and man, I can't remember if it was a congressman or a member of the CDC, but there was one rep who was saying that it's just as deadly, and it was someone very high up. I want to say maybe it was the leader of the CDC, with the Center of Disease Control, or some official in the government who said it's just as dangerous as cocaine.
They said marijuana,
which is also
just as dangerous as cocaine.
Yeah.
This is another one of those things, though, that's like, how is this affecting black people? Mm-hmm. Because for cocaine and marijuana to be on the same pedestal is like, bro, no way. Or then
but
even
it's not.
Like,
but marijuana,
to know that, like,
not. I mean, white people do marijuana too, so it's not even like,
white people do smoke marijuana, but for some reason, I feel like we don't connect marijuana to white people in the same way.
I feel like
that
that's
we
changing.
Connect other drugs to white people.
Oh, right. I see what you're saying.
And the way that we connect weed to black people. You know what I'm saying? I still don't feel like we put marijuana on white people.
I feel you. I hear you. I do think that's changing, though. I don't feel that like I used to feel that marijuana is a black thing. I feel very much like it's a young thing.
To me, it's never been a black thing.
It's never been a black thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But there has been, but that perception is out there because of, because of rap stars. If I'm honest, I really do think it is largely to deal with rap, because they openly talked about smoking weed before anybody else. When you talk about public figures talking about weed smoking like a hobby. You think of Snoop Dogg, Wiz Khalifa, Tupac, gamed you out about the blunts from day one back in like 90, you know what I'm saying, 93, so I think for that reason it's a feeling. But people have been smoking, I mean, the hippies, come on, man, that's the 60s. They were all, they weren't all white, but it was a white movement, and they were deep into the weed.
I remember
LSD
the first time, well, not the first time, but some of the early moments of me being introduced to weed, it was always like the white people who had weed had like the crazy weed. They have, now I feel like it's a thing where black folk feel like, no, I got the loud, got them packs, got all the strains and the strands and sativas and indicas and everything. But like, it was white people who were like, all right, this big nugs, like going in, into like
the science.
Black people were like, man, look, it's regular weed, man. Weed. Does it smoke, dog? Does it work?
Right.
Shit.
But again, I feel like all of that is changing. I feel like, now everyone knows about sativa and indica. That's like common knowledge. I feel like at one point.
Knowledge?
Yeah. I feel like sativa and indica, the difference between the two is fairly common. Not if you don't smoke, but a lot of people smoke, and they're aware.
Yeah.
Much more aware of when I was like graduating from high school going to college. I didn't know what sativa was, but now it's like, everyone's. That's those are common words. It's not like strange. But I don't know. But then again, maybe that's the circles I hang around.
Huh? What?
Just kidding. I joke.
What is that? Over there.
So back to, you never really shared your perspective on why opioids are now this opioid epidemic is treated like a crisis of rehab versus crime and punishment.
It's funny because this is one of those moments where I kind of feel like, is Donald Trump racist or is he just stupid? Because like the comment that I made earlier about the Kellyanne Conway thing is just like, no, we're defunding all that shit.
Yeah.
We're defunding all that shit. If you're a crackhead, die. Or I'm sorry, not a crackhead, but if you're addicted to opioids, an opiate, whatever, die. Mm-hmm. As far as we're concerned, we'll lock you up. You're abusing whatever. Keep it moving. And that's kind of one of those things that's like, that's kind of harsh, Donald. I'm actually surprised that you will take the turn to say, look, get your shit together or we will leave you.
I'm not surprised at all. What do you mean?
I mean, no, I guess it just kind of works in the favor of like, Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump wants all black people to die. No, Donald Trump wants white people to die too. He wants you opioid addicted white people to just toodle.
That's what I'm saying.
Peace out.
I've said it before, I think, on the show. Donald Trump is racist for sure, but I think I don't think he cares about black people. But I don't think he cares about white people either. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I think those are very small thoughts in his mind. I think he generally cares about himself. And everybody else is a moron, an idiot, and inferior. And I think he has a general superiority complex over everyone. So of course that includes blacks. I mean, but it includes the Chinese and the Russians. I think he thinks he's smarter than them too, and the Germans and everybody else. I think he considers himself German. I think I've seen him talk about his superior German blood. Yeah, literally. You should look that up because I know you probably think I'm exaggerating.
I think at the end of the day, it all boils down to when you live in a predominantly white place, white people. And people who look at white still as like the standard of like, these are the people, this is the majority, even whether or not they actually statistically really are the majority. People look at them as like, okay, whatever I think more people of color can humanize white people versus white people being able to humanize people of color. I was listening to a radio program and I heard a caller try to say, well, crack, if you're a crackhead, why it's not the same as if you're addicted to prescription painkillers because it's crack. Why did you get on crack? Versus when you get on a prescription drug, it's because you're in pain and you go to the doctor and you really want help. And it's like, but is that not the same for a person who's on crack? What I'm saying? That they have some sort of bigger pain, some sort of issue that they're trying to relieve themselves from. Right. Why is it
but they can't afford to see a psychologist or a doctor,
to go see. Exactly.
So that they're self-medicating. That's why they call it that.
Exactly. And so it's a class thing maybe that if you can't afford these big drugs, that all the other drugs that y'all are doing, poor people should be thrown away because you're not even smart enough to get yourself out of poverty. Is that kind of like what it is? And that is very problematic and dangerous thinking to say that you're poor because you choose to be poor, you want to be poor, you don't want to get out of your situation, But if you have money and you have the resources. Yeah. Damn. I feel like that all kind of just came to me too in the course of this conversation of how maybe this isn't so much race-based.
It's class. But they're so highly linked. It's hard to separate the two. To be honest, I mean, because it's always a class issue. It's always a class issue, and usually that means because black people, the majority of us, are not doing well compared to our white counterparts, and that's been true since we were released from our chains. So. In America, exactly. And so when you talk about, anytime you're talking about poor people, unless you're talking about rural America, and it's a very location-based problem, you're going to be talking about black people in any city. It doesn't matter if it's Miami, New York, Detroit, Chicago, LA. We'll be disproportionately affected because we're disproportionately in poverty.
Yeah. Very unfortunate. I'm. It's just like how does the tide change on things like that? How do we really get the ball rolling?
Well, when you think about it, we're actually doing pretty good. The reason I say that in a weird way because because it in my mind it always takes longer to build than it does to destroy, right? It took us 400 years to get to where we are. Well, where we were before we were free, quote unquote free. It's going to take, in my head, it would make sense that it would take even longer than that.
600 to 800 years to,
to rebuild
Yikes.
ourselves and get back to a place where equality is even, as a whole, that we can even reasonably really mean when we say we were equal.
Yeah.
I think that would be reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Sometimes I'd be like, that's a long time.
It is. We won't see that day.
Yeah.
That kind of makes me sad sometimes.
The Civil War ended in the 1860s, right?
Late 1860s.
So that we've had like 150 years.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like a lot of people don't even realize that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize this, and then even after the Civil War.
Yeah, we weren't.
You know what I'm saying?
It wasn't like
there wasn't an immediate
free.
response. We didn't send the email out to everybody, be like, "All right, you guys are free. Go and live your lives." It took forever.
Like that process, though, like even that process that we know from history, we were freed, but then what? We have no resources. We don't have any land. We don't have any. We have skills, the skills that we have from slavery, and we literally started from there, from nothing. A lot of slaves stayed with the same master, because they had housing and food, and they were supposed to be paying them, and eventually, for all of the South, not just the South, but all of the country, they had to start paying their slaves. But it was a long, slow, and painful process. How people don't like to part with money. Period.
Yeah.
And you talking about you had to give it to slaves.
Somebody who's not even a human being.
You used to think is property
mind?
2 days ago,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
and
we got
here
a lot of growing to do. Yeah, and but that's real. That's real, and that's real. I do want to get away. Well, no. I guess not. I guess that means, because sometimes I'll say to you, like, I'm really tired of the struggle narrative that, like, hovers over black lives. It's just like, oh, it's just so hard for black people. Every day we struggle. Oh, God. Dog, I'm so tired of that shit. I'm absolutely tired of that narrative. But then, and when you think about it in terms of a timeline of actually realizing freedom in America, that we are struggling, and we will have about another couple 100 years ahead of us.
Most of our history in America is us in chains, literally.
Yeah.
In slavery, and dealing with the after effects of slavery. That's most of our history. Even though it sucks. And eventually it can't be our story forever. I don't want it to be our story forever.
I don't want it to be our story forever.
I don't want to be black to be synonymous with struggle.
Pain and struggle and strife.
Pain and suffering, and that can't be all there is to it, forever. So, I feel you.
Yeah.
That's whack.
That is whack. So, but in terms of this opioid thing, I guess the conclusion we've reached is that it does feel more like a class issue, but then class is so closely related to race in America that it almost looks like one and the same, but maybe it's not just race. Maybe it's not just racism. This is how we're trying to solve these drug issues now.
It's not. It almost never is, though. And I think that's my point. Just like, it's almost never one. Just never just one thing.
Yeah.
It's always 7 things.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. All right. Well, in conclusion.
You heard it here first. Alexyn thinks opioid addiction is fun.
No, opioids are terrible. Opioids, take it out. No, we don't like that. We don't like addiction. Yeah. And oh shit, we only have about a minute left. But god damn it, I kind of want to jump in and say really quickly. I'm gonna take 10 seconds. That took 10 seconds. That I forgot.
Oh man, that was the biggest letdown.
I hate myself. I hate me.
I've never been let down as much. We got a minute left. Talk about Alexyn in the clutch. What's up? Subscribe. I mean, yeah.
No, that really wasn't what I was gonna say, but
You were trying to get to something before that?
Yeah.
We got to get to the ending. Hey, listen, this has been Free Coffee. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to us on Twitter. Subscribe to us, most importantly, on YouTube.
Yes.
Watch our videos every week. We're going to be consistent. We're pumping them out.
Pumping them out weekly. So, yeah, there's always new content coming from us each week. And we're on Facebook as well.
We are on Facebook as well. And, you know, all the social media memes. Social media means of communication. Facebook,
Snapchat.
Twitter. Because that's hard. That's tough.
I heard Snapchat's dying, though. Snapchat's on the way out.
It's not dying.
No, I just read an article on it.
I don't.
Mark Zuckerberg is actively taking Snapchat out of the game by duplicating all that shit. Because, Facebook owns Instagram and they're doing filters. They're killing the filter game, too.
I got to read up on that. I don't believe it.
Okay, I'll send you the article. This is Free Coffee.
This is Free Coffee. Peace!